I think it's have faith in yourself, in your abilities, and having the courage to try. Right. I can't tell you how many people I've run into since we started Cargo Shot. This boy, I always want to start my own business. I always wanted to do this. I always wanted to do that, but they never did it. They never got around to it. And so I think if you're confident in yourself and your abilities, and you have a great idea, and you got to step up to the plate and swing the bat and see if you can make something of it. So I would say that's it.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Jeff Jaeger. And Jeff grew up in Western New York, graduated from Holly High School there, and then went on to attend Ohio State University, where he got majored in transportation and linguistics. Also holds a bachelor's degree in, I think, bachelor degrees of science and business, and got that from Ohio State. And then also went on to get an MBA as well. And then upon graduation, he went into the United States Marine Corps as a second lieutenant, was a decorated combat veteran, and thank you for your service, and earned several different medals and whatnot during that service. And then over the next 25 years, gained experience in the transportation and logistics operations, and including working for some Fortune 300 companies and also some privately owned enterprises. But after that, went on to other positions in management and to VP. That translated over to the business that he's doing today. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Jeff.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Hey, excited to have you on and to have a great discussion. So I just gave a much more condensed version to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind things a bit and tell us how your journey got started growing up in Western New York?
Yeah, my whole life has probably been in Western New York, prior to going to college and getting in the service. But my parents were teachers, and then they were both retired as superintendent of schools. So big education background in our family. But yeah, graduated from Holly High School, and some neighbors were Ohio State alumni and talked me into checking out the university. So I went out there and fell in love with the place, and it was a great decision to go to Ohio State and be part of that transportation and logistics program there. So
now you went off to college and you got the degree in transportation and logistics, and I think you also at one point went and got a MBA degree as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I went back to school when I was 40 to get the MBA.
So there was a bit of a gap between our bachelor's and an MBA. Yeah. So maybe before we jump to the MBA, so you coming out of school, got the degree in transportation and logistics, and where did you go from there?
From there, I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, and went to Quantico, attended the basic school, and then from there went to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where I joined the 2nd Assault Amphibian Battalion, and spent my time there and on the drill field out in San Diego as well. So it was a great time there. Armored vehicle officer, did Desert Shield, Desert Storm, was part of the Marine Expeditionary Force that went through the minefields into Kuwait and on up to west of Kuwait City. So exciting times.
Hey, definitely. Thank you for your service. Always very admirable to do that. So you were in the Marine Corps. Now, how long were you, and were a combat veteran? How long did you serve in the military?
Yeah, I did just under 7 years of active duty, and then 2 in the reserves. Most of my reserve time was in what they call the IRR, the Individual Ready Reserves, but I did work a little bit with the Milwaukee Infantry Unit when I was living in Wisconsin.
Awesome. So no, it sounds like it was a good experience, and probably I said one thing I think, or at least from my experience, the military does do pretty well is transportation and logistics. So probably matched up pretty well with what you'd studied in school. So now you're coming out of so you served for 7 years, decorated veteran, and then you're coming out, and kind of how did you figure out what you do from there? Because I have several people that are in my wife's family, they're in the military, and it's kind of either you're in it for life, or when you come out, you know, you always transitioning and figuring out kind of what you do after the military life. So kind of what was the direction you took, or kind of where'd you go from there?
Yeah. So fortunately, one of the guys that I served with, his dad owned a trucking company that was working for the largest dairy in the US at the time. And with my degree in transportation and logistics, he had gotten out and was going home and working in the family business. And because of that alignment and our friendship, you know, he wanted me to kind of come join him. So I was right at that point where had been selected for career level school, and I got married, and, you know, we were thinking about starting a family. And so at that point, you know, he made me an offer, and after a lot of thought, I took it. And so I turned in my resignation from active duty, and
Hmm.
we moved to Wisconsin, and went to work for his family business. And I did that for 3 years. And then I went on with the corporation itself
So
for
now,
the
just
next.
kind of out of curiosity, so you go from military, you know, serving in, you know, Desert Storm and those type of things, to the Wisconsin and the dairy business. You know, how was that transition? Was it smoother than expected? Was it kind of, you know, almost or gearing towards a different lifestyle, or kind of how did that transition go?
Yeah, I mean, the transition itself was fine. But I think I realized probably about a month into it that I really missed the military
Mm.
lifestyle. But at that point, you know, I'd made the commitment to be there. And so, you know, I did the reserves a little bit, but that was pretty challenging to do the reserves and carry a job where you're working 60, 70 hours a week. So
Mm.
something had to give. So I chose the civilian world at that point, and moved on from there.
No, makes sense. And or you know, to take that or time to transition and make the commitment to being you know, a little, or home a bit more for family, and settling into civilian life. So now you did that for 3 years, or worked there with Wisconsin, and then you say you moved on to, you know, a few other corporate gigs. You know what, you know, couple questions: what made you decide to move on to the other gigs, and kind of what were those, or what were those?
Yeah, the family business was great. People were fantastic. But there just wasn't a lot of growth potential there for me. And so I'd seen some jobs posted with the corporation that they were working for, and I applied for those, and I got them, and that moved us from Wisconsin to Orlando, Florida, and on with the company. And then I spent 17 years there, moving from manager to vice president. So it was a good career, good company, great folks. The leader in the dairy industry at the time. So it was a good move for us.
Hmm. So now you did, and so now you, as you made that, you know, definitely get, you know, you work for a small or business or company. It's a great you know, great maybe as far as culture and friends and relationships and working with those. But you're also saying it does sometimes handicap or limit or restrict what your growth potential, or where you're able to take your career. So you decide, okay, you know, to reach kind of the point in time to where I'm going to go work for a little bit larger corporations. And I think when we chatted a bit before, you know, kind of over the course of 25 years, you worked both for some large public companies that are Fortune 300 companies, and also worked for privately owned enterprises, and kind of, or in various positions. Is that right? Or kind of help me to
Yeah,
fill in the gap there.
yeah, absolutely. So, you know, after the dairy industry, then I moved into the consulting world, where I met one of my business partners today, John, um, and worked for him for a little bit, and then went on into the 3PL warehousing world, where I spent the last 7 years. So
Mm.
as a vice president of operations there. So, and that's really where Cargo Shot came from. You know, the impetus of that was, you know, issues that we were having at work and trying to figure out a way to solve those problems.
Yeah, so maybe let's dive into that just a little bit more. So, you know, so you work at various positions over the course of 25 years, all in the kind of the transportation operations, logistics kind of industry. And then, you know, before Cargo Shot, you moved over to, you know, I think you said it was a multi-site 3PL,
Mhm.
and maybe, or help explain just for the audience that maybe isn't aware of what is 3PL.
It's a third party logistics company. There's different types. Some of them are transportation, some of them are warehousing, some of them are, you know, combinations of both. But in my particular case, you know, we were a warehousing company that did public warehousing, dedicated warehousing, production line, feeding for major automotive companies and things of that nature. So basically, you know, we had different clients across a dozen or so warehouses here in basically North Carolina. and serving those clients from either e-commerce or just, kind of everything in between. So
now you were doing that, and how long were you at that company?
7 years.
So you're at that for 7 years, and I think you mentioned that as you're working there, you started to identify, I don't know, issues, problems, deficiencies, things that could be improved, things that could be done better. Help us walk through, because I think that there are plenty of people that are in positions, and sometimes you're just wrong, and what you think is you could do better, you go and try and do it on your own. You can't really do better. But I think a lot of people get to that of, hey, I've got a great idea, or I think I could do this better. But should I go and should I just try and do it internally within the company? Should I spin out and try and pursue my own thing? And kind of walk us through, as you were, kind of what were the deficiencies that you were identifying, and then how did you decide what the course was that you're going to go about addressing those?
Yeah, I think there was several different issues. So we'll kind of walk through those individually. But, in the big box retail space, we were starting to get into the e-commerce world. And one of the things that happens in that world is they have this thing called a vendor guide. And vendor guides are put together by these big box retailers as basically, how to do business with them. And it talks about many different things, from how to communicate with them to, how they want product to show up in their warehouses. But one of the big things in there is fines and penalties. And so if product shows up and it's not labeled properly, it's not picked properly, it doesn't have slip sheets, those type of things, it results in fines and penalties. And so in the US, in 2021, it's, was a $1.3 trillion logistics industry in the US. And on average, about 10% of that, or just a little over $100 billion, is fines, penalties, and freight claims. So we were getting fines in a lot of cases. We didn't feel like they were even justified, but you're kind of guilty till you prove yourself innocent. So we started taking photographs as a way to defend ourselves. And sometimes these things would show up 3 months later, 6 months later. I've seen them as long as 2 years later. They show back up and say, hey, you owe me $5,000 or some really large number. And so without photograph to say, here's what it looked like when I sent it to you, you can see there was a packing slip on there. You can see it was placarded. You can see the pallet wasn't broken. You just have no way to defend yourself. So you have to, in almost every case, you have to pay the fine. And even with a photograph, there's no guarantee, but at least it gives you kind of a defensible position. So, and then also that kind of bled into, other things like, inbound freight coming in damaged, proving the condition that when you received it, training, when you have new people coming into your organization, did they do it right? And if they did, you want to show people that. And if they didn't, then you want to use that as a coaching opportunity as well. So, really what I did was kind of create a system that took, a really manual process and automated it and kind of let you use it across your entire organization. So in the old days, we would have to, kind of get a camera, get an SD card, go out, take a photo, walk to the computer, take the card out, load it into the computer, name the file, something that made sense and that you could find 3 months now, 6 months from now, then save that file and then do that every day. Right. Now with Cargo Shot, we have an app that sits on your phone, your tablet, and we collect all the different types of pertinent information, the photograph of the product at shipment, the photograph of the product at receipt, the carrier, the trailer number, the bill lading number, the order number, so that now you can just go back into our dashboard and look up that product, and anyone can do it. Your customer service people, it's all accessible across your enterprise. So, and we've also got some other stuff too on the front that's coming with development that literally no one in the industry is doing. That's really exciting stuff. So
now, before we get into that, and definitely we are happy or love to touch on that. But the one question that kind of comes to mind is, when you're looking at it, when you initially set out, it sounds like, putting words in your mouth, but definitely correct me where I'm wrong. You were were you building this internal to the company you were at just so that you could reduce the fines? And then you said, hey, we've got enough of an opportunity. We want to build it out as its own company or its own branch, or kind of how did you kind of transition and progress from, we'll just snap shots to, hey, we're going to build this as an automation that can actually impact the industry and save a lot of money?
Yeah, I think at first it started out, do something for the place where I was working at the time, but there wasn't a whole lot of interest there. And so I just let them know that I was gonna, go do this on my own. So that's kind of what happened.
So now,
And
so you decide, okay, they pitch it internally, not a lot of interest. You still think it's a good opportunity. Hey, I'm gonna go do it on my own and pursue this. Now, how did you go about doing that? In other words, there are a lot of people who say, I think it's a great opportunity, I'm gonna go or spin it off. And then you get into the quote unquote real world, or running your own business, and you find out, hey, I have to build a team, I have to get software programmers, I have to get marketing, sales, payroll, HR, get a building, get hiring, firing, get a janitor, get all those things. And then, they quickly lose momentum and steam. And so how did you kind of, as you're saying, okay, I'm going to go pursue this, how did you spin it off? How did you build the team, and how did you get things going?
yeah, so it was a bit of a journey, longer than I thought. But at first, it's just kind of me and talking to programmers and, different people to figure out, okay, can I find somebody that I know that has the skill sets to do what I want to do? Because I know that I didn't have all those skill sets myself, right? And I wasn't going to acquire them. So I needed to find people that believed in what was happening, and they could see the vision, but also had the technical ability or the connections that I didn't have to kind of bring it to life. And so what happened was, in that search, a friend of mine, who was my company commander actually during Desert Storm, had reconnected with the guy that I had worked for, John, previously. And he had a partner, Ed, and they were looking to do something in kind of the software technology space with logistics. And so we kind of did a 3-way or a 4-way call, and they pitched their idea to me, and we went back and forth. And I think we decided that had been kind of done many times over. And so I pitched my idea, and they said, yeah, we like that. Let's do it. So John and Ed joined the team, and the three of us became partners. And we've financed Cargo Shot, through our own personal finances. So from that point, we were able to find John had connections in the software industry, and we had to decide, do we want to outsource that software development to India, Pakistan, Eastern Europe, or do we want to do it in the US? Ultimately, we decided to go with a company in the US and California. We built an app, and then we started testing it, and then we needed someone to test it for us. So through my connections, we were able to find a medical device company that was having customer service issues, and they tested it for us, and they became our first customer. So it's been good. It's, from the time that the three of us hooked up till now, it's been probably 20 months, but we're finally at the point now where we're signing up customers. We got selected for a tech incubator out in San Diego, called Procopio. They've put us in their cohort for 2023. And now we're, starting to think about seed funding and other things, happening in the new year. So
well, that's awesome. That's exciting. So it sounds like, so you got together and it sounds like, again, putting words in your mouth, that you can correct me where I'm wrong, that you had some people that you had already had over the course of your career in the various industries and the various positions. You're saying, hey, they'd be good sounding boards, they'd probably be good colleagues, or they could offer different skills. And that you formed kind of your core unit of a few people, and then from there you went about building the company. And then it sounds like over the past 20 months, some of your connections over your career, you now were able to reach out to them and start to bring them on as a customer or client. Is that about right?
Yeah. And like John's background has been product development and management. His background is more technology, and I come at it from the operational side. And so between the three of us, we bring a lot of different skill sets, so we kind of complement each other. We work together really well, and that's translated into a product that seems to be getting some traction. So we're solving that $100 billion problem in the US, and getting a lot of good feedback, good positive feedback.
Well, that's awesome. Sounds like it's been a short time, but a great, almost coming up on a couple of years now. So you started to touch on, and direction where you're headed or the next kind of feature that. So maybe you paint us a little bit of a picture. Where do you see things head in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, we got a technology pipeline. Obviously, we want to keep that kind of close to the vest, but we've hired a person to do some development for us with optical machine learning and artificial intelligence to bring some tools to the table that no one in the industry is doing. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be exciting.
Well, that's awesome. So no, it sounds like a lot of great opportunities and great things yet to come. So definitely we'll keep an eye on things. But now as we reach kind of excuse me, the present day of your journey and even looking a bit into the future, always a great time to hit on the two questions I always ask at the end of each episode. Now, before we do that, you guys have been at Cargo Shot have been gracious enough to sponsor a water bottle giveaway, and it's always a fun thing where people get some high quality water bottles that get to represent them are going along their own entrepreneurial journey. And the way that we do that is we'll you can go to and we'll provide the details in the show notes, but you'll go to the Miller IP Law website, and then you're able to just use a promo code to get one of the water bottles if you're the first 5 people to use a code. So with that, before we dive into the last 2 questions, why don't you go ahead and share what is that promo code that people can use to get those water bottles?
Yeah, that promo code is Save with Cargo Shot, SAVEWITHCARGOSHOT. So that keeps with our theme of saving people money, creating value.
Awesome. We'll definitely encourage people to use Save with Cargo Shot, all one word. Just go get a water bottle, and then you can represent your journey along entrepreneurship, as well as support a great company. So now with that, now as we do transition to the 2 questions I always ask at the end of each episode. First question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Yeah, I think those are always tough questions, but I think in my case, I think the worst business decision I ever made was really hiring people that were friends of someone that I was working for at the time, and they may or may not have been qualified for the work that they were doing. So I think it's always important, you pick the best team you can put on the field, and sometimes you feel that political pressure, and it can be daunting to say no in the face of it. But I think you really, to be true to yourself and true to the business, you got to make those right calls. So I probably wouldn't let myself be put in that situation again.
Makes perfect sense. Easy mistake to make, but a good one to learn from. So now the second question I always ask is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I think it's have faith in yourself, in your abilities, and having the courage to try. Right. I can't tell you how many people I've run into since we started Cargo Shot. This boy, I always want to start my own business. I always wanted to do this. I always wanted to do that, but they never did it. They never got around to it. And so I think if you're confident in yourself and your abilities, and you have a great idea, and you got to step up to the plate and swing the bat and see if you can make something of it. So I would say that's it.
Awesome. Definitely a great piece of advice and a great takeaway. So, well, now as we are wrapping towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, 2 ways. They can go to our website, www.cargoshot.com. And in there, there's a button on the homepage. You can click on that, connect with us, and push on that, or you can give us a shout at 803-701-0678. And then also on LinkedIn, you can find me at Jeff Jaeger, JEFFJAEGER11 on LinkedIn. You can connect there as well.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to use any or all of the ways to connect, support a great company, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Jeff, for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Go ahead and click share, subscribe, and leave us a review, because it helps us to share this these journeys with even more startups and small businesses to help them along their way to success. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your startup or your small business with any patents or trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Jeff, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin, for having me. Happy holidays.